What if I told you that scattered throughout history, there are documented cases of people claiming to have traveled through time? From Victorian photographs showing modern technology to ancient texts describing future events with impossible accuracy. These aren't just science fiction stories, they're real claims made by real people that have left investigators baffled for decades. Today, we're diving into 8 of the most shocking and unexplained time travel claims that continue to defy rational explanation. On a bustling evening in Times Square, 1950, a man stepped into traffic as if emerging from another world entirely. Within moments, he would be dead, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt investigators for decades. The victim appeared to be in his late 20s, well-groomed and strangely calm in his final moments before the speeding taxi struck him down. But it wasn't his demeanor that puzzled the responding officers, it was his appearance. In an era of modern suits and fedoras, this man wore clothing that belonged to another time, Victorian-era attire so authentic and well-preserved that it seemed impossible. When police searched his pockets, the mystery deepened into something far more unsettling. They found coins dated from the 1800s, their metal aged and worn smooth by decades of handling. Business cards bore the names of companies that had shuttered their doors 70 years prior. Most disturbing of all was a personal letter, its paper yellowed and brittle, dated 1876. The name on these documents was consistent: Rudolph Fentz. Driven by curiosity, investigators delved into the archives, searching for any trace of this anachronistic man. What they discovered defied explanation. Records showed that a Rudolph Fentz had indeed vanished without a trace in 1876. He had been 29 years old when he disappeared, the same apparent age as the man who died in Times Square 74 years later. The physical descriptions matched with unnerving precision. The case was meticulously documented in NYPD files, witnessed by multiple officers and civilians alike. Yet decades later, when researchers attempted to verify these extraordinary claims, they found that the official records had mysteriously vanished from police archives. No trace remained of what should have been one of the most significant, unexplained cases in the department's history. Skeptics dismissed the Rudolph Fentz case as nothing more than an elaborate urban legend, a story that grew in the telling. But the witnesses who saw a man dressed in clothes from another century, the officers who held those impossible artifacts in their hands, they knew what they experienced. In a city where millions of stories unfold every day, perhaps some mysteries are too extraordinary for our records to contain. In the grainy footage of a 1928 film premiere, something impossible walks among the crowd, a figure that shouldn't exist for another 80 years. What makes this footage truly unnerving is not just what the woman is doing, but how naturally she's doing it. Her lips move in animated conversation, her body language suggesting she's deeply engaged with someone on the other end of whatever device she's holding. The motion is fluid, familiar, exactly as one would expect from someone talking on a cellular phone, decades before such technology would even be conceived. Frame-by-frame analysis of the original film has revealed no signs of digital manipulation or editing trickery. The image quality, grain patterns, and lighting all remain consistent with authentic 1920s footage. This eliminates the most obvious explanation, leaving researchers to grapple with an increasingly impossible puzzle. Some have desperately suggested she might be using an early wireless communication device, but no such technology existed for public use in 1928. Perhaps most disturbing of all are the subtle details that seem wrong for the era. The woman's mannerisms appear oddly contemporary, her clothing just slightly out of place among the authentic period dress surrounding her. She moves through the crowd, not as someone marveling at a grand premiere, but as someone casually multitasking, behavior that would have been utterly foreign to the social norms of the time. The footage remains locked in the archives, a temporal contradiction that challenges our understanding of linear time itself. Was this woman simply ahead of her era, or does the celluloid preserve evidence of something far more extraordinary, a glimpse of someone who never belonged in 1928 at all? What would you do if you could see the future as clearly as reading yesterday's newspaper? One man claimed he didn't have to wonder. In 2003, the FBI found themselves investigating what appeared to be an impossible case. Andrew Carlssin, a previously unknown trader, had accomplished something that defied every law of probability and market logic. In just 2 weeks, he had transformed a modest $800 into an astronomical $350 million. 126 consecutive successful trades, each one precisely timed, each one flawlessly executed. In the cutthroat world of Wall Street, such consistency was not just unlikely, it was mathematically impossible. When federal agents finally cornered Carlssin, his explanation was as chilling as it was absurd. He claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2256, displaced in time by centuries. To him, he insisted, these weren't risky investments, they were historical facts. The stock movements he had predicted with such uncanny accuracy were simply events he remembered from his past, our future. What seemed like supernatural foresight was, according to Carlssin, nothing more than a man consulting his memories. But Carlssin's claims extended far beyond financial markets. In a desperate bid for freedom, he offered his captors information that would shake the foundations of the modern world. He promised to reveal the exact location of Osama bin Laden, then the world's most wanted man. More remarkably still, he claimed knowledge of the cure for AIDS secrets from a future where humanity had conquered its greatest challenges. During his interrogation, Carlssin made several specific predictions about upcoming events, predictions that investigators would later watch unfold with growing unease. The case took an even stranger turn when Carlssin's mysterious benefactor posted his bail. But freedom, it seemed, was exactly what he had been waiting for. Within days of his release, Andrew Carlssin had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and a paper trail that led nowhere. Investigators soon discovered something that chilled them to the bone. There were no records of Andrew Carlssin's existence prior to 2003. No birth certificate, no social security number, no school records, no digital footprint. It was as if he had simply materialized from thin air, or perhaps from another time entirely. Was Andrew Carlssin a master manipulator who had crafted the perfect cover story for insider trading? Or had the authorities briefly held a genuine visitor from humanity's distant future? In the decades since his disappearance, no trace of him has ever been found. But then again, perhaps they've been looking in the wrong century. What would you do if a simple afternoon stroll transported you back over a century into the past, placing you face to face with history's most doomed queen? On a warm August afternoon in 1901, two respected Oxford academics made their way through the manicured gardens of Versailles. Eleanor Jourdain and Charlotte Ann Moberly were cultured, rational women, the type who dealt in facts, evidence, and scholarly discourse. They had come to France for a leisurely vacation, planning nothing more extraordinary than admiring French architecture and perhaps sketching a few historical landmarks. But as they wandered deeper into the palace grounds, something began to feel wrong. The air grew heavy and oppressive. The sounds of modern tourists faded to an unnatural silence. And then, as if stepping through an invisible veil, they found themselves surrounded by people dressed in elaborate 18th century clothing. Courtiers in powdered wigs and silk stockings strolled past them with barely a glance. The women watched in stunned silence as these figures moved through gardens that seemed somehow different, more vivid, more alive than moments before. But it was when they spotted a woman in a light summer dress sketching beneath a tree that their hearts truly stopped. The pale, melancholy face was unmistakable from countless portraits. Marie Antoinette, the doomed queen who had lost her head to the guillotine over a century earlier. When they finally returned to their hotel that evening, both women were shaken. In the days that followed, they began to compare notes and discovered something that defied explanation. Without consulting each other, they had independently sketched the same faces, the same architectural details, the same impossible scenes. Even more disturbing, their drawings depicted buildings and garden features that historical records showed had been demolished decades before their visit. How could two women, seeing the past for the first time, accurately capture structures that no longer existed? Determined to understand what had happened to them, Moberly and Jourdain spent years researching their experience. what they discovered only deepened the mystery. Their account, published as an adventure, contained historically accurate details about Versailles in 1789 that neither woman could have known beforehand. Obscure court protocols, forgotten architectural elements, even the specific clothing styles worn during those final, desperate months before the French Revolution. It was all there, recorded with the precision of eyewitnesses. For over a century, psychical researchers and historians have pored over their testimony, searching for fraud, delusion, or simple mistake. None have found a satisfactory explanation. Two rational, educated women claim to have walked through time itself, returning with evidence that shouldn't exist. Were they elaborate hoaxers, shared victims of some mass hallucination, or did they really glimpse the final, tragic days of the French monarchy? In the gardens of Versailles, where the ghosts of revolution still seem to whisper through the leaves, perhaps some questions are meant to remain unanswered. In the early days of the internet, when dial-up modems screeched their electronic songs and forums buzzed with anonymous voices, one user claimed something impossible. He wasn't from our time at all. It began in the year 2000, on obscure message boards where conspiracy theorists and curious minds gathered in digital shadows. A user calling himself John Titor introduced himself with a claim that would captivate the internet for months to come. He was, he said, a soldier from the year 2036, sent back through time on a mission of critical importance, to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer from 1975. But something had gone wrong, or perhaps according to plan, and he found himself stranded in our present with time to spare before completing his journey. What followed was not the rambling of an obvious hoaxer, but something far more unsettling. Titor painted a chilling portrait of humanity's future, with the precision of a historian documenting the past. He spoke of a second American Civil War that would tear the nation apart, beginning in 2004 with increasing civil unrest and culminating in a conflict that would reshape the continent. Beyond that, he warned of World War III, a nuclear exchange with Russia that would claim 3 billion lives and leave the world forever changed. But Titor didn't merely prophesy. He shared detailed technical schematics of his time machine, complete with explanations of temporal displacement physics that seemed to draw from legitimate scientific theory. He described how his device used dual rotating black holes to bend spacetime, creating what he called world-line divergence. The diagrams were intricate, the physics surprisingly coherent, far beyond what most internet users could fabricate on a whim. As months passed, something eerie began to emerge from Titor's predictions. While his grand prophecies of civil war failed to materialize as described, smaller details proved unnervingly accurate. He had spoken of specific technological developments, global tensions, and social changes that began manifesting in ways that sent chills down the spines of those who remembered his words. Yet for every hit, there was a miss, leaving investigators to wonder whether they were witnessing the ramifications of alternate timelines or simply the educated guesses of a remarkably prescient individual. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, John Titor vanished. In 2001, he posted his final message, explaining that his mission was complete and it was time to return to his own era. True to his word, the enigmatic soldier from tomorrow fell silent, leaving behind only archived posts and a mystery that has haunted the internet for over 2 decades. But perhaps the most disturbing question isn't whether John Titor was real, it's whether, somewhere in the quantum foam of parallel realities, he still is. What if the past wasn't truly gone, but merely waiting behind a thin veil of reality, ready to pull unsuspecting strangers back through time? Bold Street in Liverpool appears to be an ordinary shopping district, bustling with modern life and contemporary storefronts. Yet beneath its unremarkable facade lies something far more extraordinary, a phenomenon that has transformed this stretch of pavement into one of the world's most documented time-slip locations. For decades, witnesses have reported stepping from 21st century Liverpool into what appears to be the 1960s, complete with vintage automobiles, period clothing, and shops that shouldn't exist. The experiences follow an unsettling pattern. Shoppers describe the moment when familiar surroundings suddenly shift around them. Modern cars vanish, replaced by classic vehicles from another era. Contemporary storefronts transform into vintage shops with faded paintwork and old-fashioned window displays. The very air seems different, carrying sounds and smells from a Liverpool that existed 40 years in the past. These aren't fleeting glimpses or tricks of the light, but sustained encounters lasting several minutes. Perhaps the most compelling case involves Frank, a security guard who found himself standing before Cripp's bookstore, a shop that had been closed for years. Yet there it was, fully operational, its windows displaying books and merchandise from the 1960s. Frank entered and browsed the authentic period stock, surrounded by the musty scent of old paper and vintage binding. When he finally emerged back onto Bold Street, the modern world had returned, leaving him questioning the nature of what he had just experienced. The physical evidence proves equally baffling. Visitors report making purchases with contemporary currency, only to receive change in pre-decimal coins that Britain abandoned in 1971. These tangible artifacts from apparent time slips suggest something far more complex than simple hallucination or false memory. The coins exist, real and solid, bearing dates that predate the experiences by decades. What makes Bold Street particularly intriguing is the consistency of location and the sheer volume of reports. Dozens of documented cases have emerged from this single area, each describing remarkably similar encounters. The phenomenon appears to center on specific spots along the street, as if certain coordinates serve as doorways between different periods of time. Researchers have begun referring to these areas as temporal weak spots, places where the normal flow of time becomes somehow permeable. The question that lingers is not whether these events are occurring, but why this particular street serves as a gateway to the past, and what invisible forces might be drawing ordinary people into moments that should no longer exist. Among the thousands of Civil War photographs preserved in dusty archives and museum collections, a handful contain something that shouldn't exist, a figure that defies not just the fashion of the era, but the very laws of time itself. The first sighting emerged from a daguerreotype taken at Gettysburg in July of 1863. In the background of what should have been a routine documentation of the battlefield's aftermath, photography experts noticed something peculiar: a lone figure dressed in clothing that seemed impossibly modern for the era. The individual wore what appeared to be contemporary eyewear, sleek and refined in a way that wouldn't be invented for decades. But this was only the beginning of the mystery. As researchers delved deeper into Civil War photography archives, more images surfaced featuring the same enigmatic person. The figure appeared at Antietam, then Bull Run, then Shiloh battlefields separated by hundreds of miles and documented on dates that would have made such travel utterly impossible by any means available in the 1860s. No steam locomotive, no horse-drawn carriage could have covered such distances in the time between these photographic captures. When modern photography experts subjected these images to rigorous examination, they expected to find evidence of manipulation or forgery. Instead, they discovered something far more unsettling. The photographs bore no signs of tampering using any technology available during that era. The images appeared authentic, untouched, genuine artifacts of their time, yet the figure within them remained impossible to explain through conventional understanding. Perhaps most intriguing of all was what the mysterious individual appeared to be carrying. Close examination revealed equipment that bore no resemblance to any photographic or recording devices known to exist in the 1860s. The tools seemed advanced, purposeful, as if this person was methodically documenting these pivotal moments in American history with technology from another time entirely. Some researchers have proposed a theory that challenges our fundamental understanding of time itself, that this figure represents evidence of temporal displacement, a visitor from our future studying these crucial historical events firsthand. But if this is true, it raises a chilling question. What moments from our present are being observed and recorded by eyes that have yet to see the light of day? What if the most pivotal moments in human history were not lost to time, but carefully preserved in the Vatican's most classified archives? In the shadows of 1960s Italy, a Benedictine priest named Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed to have achieved what physicists could only dream of. Working in secrecy, this scholar of ancient music and respected theologian announced that he had constructed a device capable of peering through the veil of time itself. He called it the Chronovisor, a machine that could view past events as clearly as watching television. Ernetti's claims grew bolder with each passing month. He spoke of witnessing Napoleon's final moments, of observing ancient Roman senators in heated debate, and most shocking of all, of standing as an invisible witness to Christ's crucifixion on Calvary. To prove his extraordinary assertions, the priest produced what he claimed was photographic evidence, a hunting image of Jesus on the cross, captured not by an apostle or Roman soldier, but by a machine that defied every known law of physics. The photograph sent shockwaves through both scientific and religious communities. Yet before anyone could examine the device or verify its capabilities, the Vatican stepped in with swift and absolute authority. Church officials allegedly confiscated the Chronovisor, sealing away all research documents and declaring the entire project classified. Rumors persist that the machine was not destroyed but carefully preserved, hidden somewhere within the Vatican's vast and secretive archives. As the years passed and questions mounted, Father Ernetti found himself caught between truth and legend. In his final years, the aging priest began offering contradictory accounts of his work. Sometimes he defended the device's authenticity with passionate conviction. Other times, he hinted that the entire story was an elaborate fabrication. When pressed for clarity, he would fall silent, as if bound by secrets too dangerous to reveal. Father Ernetti took his final secrets to the grave, leaving behind only questions and that single, haunting photograph. If the Chronovisor was merely the delusion of an aging priest, why did the Vatican act with such urgency to suppress it? And if it was real, what other moments in history might be stored away in those ancient vaults, waiting for eyes that may never be permitted to see them? Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found this video interesting, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.